So I wanted to ask you about this notion of SPO, and it's been sort of around for a while, but what's the meaning of it now? What are your expectations as a buyer around SPO?
Well, yeah, it has been around for a while, and I think it's certainly evolved because it really started as something that DSPs were doing for their clients. And I think what we realized was that we wanted to know more about the supply path and more about the supply chain in programmatic. So it's really evolved. And I think at this point, for a lot of buyers, what it means more than anything is looking at those technology partners in the supply space and starting to consolidate those. So it's definitely a different meaning than how it started. It means something different to the different groups within programmatic. For us, it's taking a look at what the DSPs did and going a layer deeper and looking at what is important to our clients and what's going to help our clients hit their goals, and creating more control along the entire path than we may have had in the past.
So how does that look, or what are some of the mechanics involved there? Some specific asks that you would have as a buyer?
Well, I think there's this notion of transparency that people talk about a lot, wanting it, demanding it, and getting bits and pieces of it, but also because the supply is so massive, it's really hard to actually, even when a partner is telling you that they are transparent or that they're supplying some transparency to you, it's hard to get that at scale when you work with so many different partners and figure out, one definition of transparency and applying that across multiple partners. It's really challenging. So I think for us, it's increasingly important to find trusted technology partners in this space where we can find scale and define transparency together, and then to your question, build some sort of mechanics around that so we can audit it, we can look at it and make this thing that seemed nebulous for so long a lot more tangible.
And what about your advice to digital publishers themselves in terms of best practices, decisions that they should be making to work, to be more efficient, to optimize?
Well, I've never done yield management at a publisher, and I think that is probably a really complicated space to play in. If I had advice for them, I would ask them to scrutinize the partners that they ask us to work with on their behalf, and start to reduce some of those, because there's a lot of noise in the space, and that's what is overcomplicating programmatic for so many of us, and that's where we find these pockets of things that don't work for our clients or that we don't need, but we're being forced to work within those to access the publishers.
So what's some examples of SSPs, the qualities of SSPs that you find most useful?
When we look at SSPs, we look at kind of two things. We ask them to declare a lot of information. We ask them about their partnerships with companies that can do verification. We ask them about how much inventory they have and what kind of inventory they have. So certainly all of those are important when it comes to an exchange, the access to the right inventory. But beyond that, I think the next phase of this is partnering with exchanges who can innovate with us and help us build out custom executions for our clients that don't fit the broad spectrum but are more bespoke to the needs of our particular clients.
Cool. And finally, you have a perspective on the programmatic world, how it's changing. It used to be sort of a sideshow, and now it's kind of, in a way, the main show. Tell us how sort of programmatic plays, at Magna, at IPG Media Brands, and sort of more broadly how the industry is changing.
Yeah, I remember I started my career working at a publisher, and we sold all of our inventory, and I remember exchanges just starting to come in saying that they would monetize what was left over, and we're looking at them being like, there's nothing left over. And that's how it started. It was like, what's left? What's the scraps? And I think what's really changed is that there's so much more you can do when you have more control. and programmatic gives those tools to buyers and to marketers. So it's been a natural shift for buyers asking for more control and transparency and getting that when they have the tools in their own hands. So seeing programmatic become a bigger part of media buying is definitely exciting because it's the space that I play in. Seeing it break into things like broadcast television is really, really exciting. And kind of the evolution of how we can get closer to our consumers and kind of break away from the noise and get the right message there. So advertising is more helpful and less obtrusive, I think is a good thing, and that's probably a big reason we're seeing programmatic grow so much right now.